參與我哋呢個一個會議啦嚇，同埋亦都係一個記招。咁今日個會其實係一論壇，主要就係討論係咪應否袋住先特區政府提出嘅方案嘅。我哋今日好榮幸請到有5位嘉賓係出席啦嚇。咁首先我提一提兩個主辦單位，一個就係 Professional Commons 啦，另一個就係城大當代中國研究計劃係啦。咁就鄭一碩教授主持嘅。咁好高興兩個主辦單位係搞即係今日呢個盛會，我自己覺得嚇。其實我哋今日請到個講者，每一位都係重量級。咁就咁，但係可能太多嘢發生啦今日，咁所以暫時嚟嘅唔係太多。但係呢個唔緊要，因為我哋有部分記者媒體喺度，同埋亦都有一個民間組織係錄影緊嘅，即係將會好多人睇得到嘅。咁嗰個程序等一陣咧就我哋首先會請港大法律學院教授 Michael Davis 啦。就講大概10分鐘啦，從一個憲制角度去睇袋住先呢一樣嘢。咁如果個 Skype connection 係駁得通，因為有啲故障嘅，我哋就會請 Larry Diamond， 即係史丹福大學嘅教授會講。如果駁唔通，你唯有一路嚟試啦。咁跟住就會係前立法會議員吳靄儀大律師，佢都會同我哋分享大概10分鐘。咁然之後咧最後就有兩位就係趕緊嚟嘅嚇。就係程翔先生同埋中大榮休教授關注基教授嘅。咁而家我哋將個時間俾阿 Michael 先係。
Thank you, Xingming. Sorry I'm doing this in English. My Cantonese is horrible. So bear with me, please. I just put this first slide up here. I'm not really going to talk about it. What Xingming wanted me to do was to give a little bit of introduction, sort of the constitutional context, why people are upset. And in my personal view and the writings that I do on the subject, I always emphasize, I think Hong Kong people at its heart, the concern is with the rule of law in Hong Kong. People are concerned that Hong Kong's autonomy is getting eroded. And if the autonomy is eroded, I think the conclusion they're likely to draw is that Hong Kong's core values will be put at risk. And in particular, in numerous opinion polls, we know the most important core value has been the rule of law in Hong Kong, the idea that everyone's subject to the law. And in my view, during the summer and the last fall, I know that I was constantly debating with people on the other side. They were saying that protesters were undermining the rule of law. In fact, they first said they were violating the rule of law, and I pointed out to them, no, they're just breaking the law. They're not breaking the rule of law. You can undermine it. And so I think this has been a key concern, that why people don't want to pocket this proposal by the government. Because at the end of the day, we're not just accepting something that some people say can be updated or improved. We're accepting a fundamental undermining of Hong Kong's autonomy under the model that's been introduced to us over the past few months. So I just put this first slide up here as things I talk about frequently. One is to remind us that these commitments to Hong Kong, when Hong Kong started putting their hearts at ease, goes all the way back to the Sino-British Treaty. People were set to flee Hong Kong, so they actually take the treaty very seriously. So if the treaty's been undermined, I think that's one big concern for Hong Kong. And the Basic Law. Now today, lately we're even hearing people saying we should amend the Basic Law, and I think this is an expression of concern that if the Basic Law means what the government says it means, then maybe we don't need it anymore. But for many years, people in Hong Kong, as people do many places in the world, they rely on the Basic Law as a fundamental argument. So if the Basic Law actually means what it says, then I think people would be happier with it. They could live, I mean, every constitution has some flaws, and generally through interpretation in a spirit of adherence to the rule of law and democracy, human rights, then the Basic Law would work. Unfortunately, what we have is it being interpreted in ways that no one would recognize. We know in the period after the handover, there was some concern about how the Basic Law was interpreted, and so that was one major concern. And there was concern about foot-dragging over democracy. So I've kind of highlighted that in the slide, and I won't say much more about it because I think it's familiar to all of us here. So these two flaws, in effect, now have come back to bite us because of the liberty taken in interpreting the Basic Law. And our debate immediately focuses on Article 45 and what it means. And I think, again, we've talked a lot about it. We know that in 2004 they tried to introduce this 5-step approval process for changing Hong Kong's democratic formula. In fact, that 5-step process violated the Basic Law, because on the Basic Law on its face says that we can change the Legislative Council and just report it for the record. But through this 2004 interpretation, which effectively amended the Basic Law, that was changed. And so now we need approval for any kind of change. So you can see this history, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I also want to emphasize that international standards do exist for democracy. So you see here in this slide, Article 25 of the ICCPR. We're told frequently now that democracy means different things to different folks. But that's kind of nonsense. I think most people instinctively know that democracy means that the people ultimately determine who's in the government. And any kind of formula other than that is just reinterpretation of terms in ways that people simply don't accept and don't recognize. And I think this has been at the heart of our problem over the past few months, because by doing this, there's a kind of dishonesty introduced into Hong Kong, where governments keep telling us, you know, when I say black is white, black is white. My dad used to tell me that. He said, this is my house. If I say black is white, black is white. And that's sort of what's happening now. The Beijing government's saying, this is our Hong Kong. If we say black is white, black is white. And I think this is not just a problem in application of these commitments, but it's a problem of honesty, that Hong Kong people can't trust their government, that this government's going to... So when we see what's going on with this proposal we're supposed to pocket, there's huge amounts of dishonesty going on in terms of how this is presented to the public and what it's going to accomplish. Does anybody in Hong Kong believe that when they say this is fulfilling Article 45, that they're going to later change it? That this isn't the final proposal? No one can really believe it. I don't think even people in the pro-establishment can't believe that. Of course, they don't want to further change it. So I think this is points I think that are important. So then when we get to the white paper, we find out in the white paper they want to throw out that treaty. I mean, essentially, that's what they seem to be saying. They say the 12 articles, which we know as the Sino-British Treaty, are just principles that were created by China in 1983, before the treaty. And then they go along in Britain and actually say the treaty is void. That completely ignores Article 7 of that joint declaration, which specifically says both sides commit to fully carry out all of the guarantees. Are they fully carried out? Well, they can't be until 50 years pass. So the idea that the treaty is void undermines the rule of law in Hong Kong in a very serious way, because it in effect says that the foundation of Hong Kong is false. And then they talk about the rule of law directly here. We know that many people in Hong Kong and our legal community were very concerned with characterizing the judge's role as administering and governing Hong Kong, and that judges be concerned with national security and so on. So these kinds of things in the white paper have caused us great concern, and again undermine the rule of law as we understand it in Hong Kong. So this democracy debate we're having, and they do talk only sparingly about it in the white paper, is grounded in a white paper that says that we can do what we want. So in 1984 and 1989, Hong Kong people were told to put their hearts at ease. Now they're told Beijing is the boss. Beijing can do what it wants, and Hong Kong is like any other administrative region. So this, I think, is at the heart of our democracy debate. I think we can get past some of the fighting over how to do it if we're talking about genuine democracy. So here I just give us a nice, wonderful list of all the government's misrepresentations about Hong Kong people's opinions in this slide. And then we get to the NPC decision, and there's no way that this decision allows the people a genuine choice. That's the basic principle in international law. We even had a roundtable at Hong Kong U on this. So if you're saying this is universal suffrage, then you're not only undermining Hong Kong's democratic development, but you're undermining the rule of law, because you're taking liberty with the basic guarantees made to Hong Kong in ways that those words cannot bear. So this, I think, is a concern that we have. And so we finally get the government proposal. What was stunning to me about this is during the first round, all of us naive academics offered all kinds of moderate proposals. All of them slammed. You know, all we wanted was a genuine choice, so we could fudge this thing any way you want. Completely ignored by the government. Second round, we all boycott, right? What happens next? The pro-Beijing people offer all sorts of moderate proposals, and even those weren't good enough for the government. So how can anybody take the government seriously when it finally comes out with this decision? And so this is really all I wanted to say. And then I think it gets to the question of whether these protests that we've been having are justified. I think the answer is rather obvious. Okay, and I'll stop right there. I've used my 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.